Have you ever stood in front of the bread shelf, looking at all of it and thinking, okay, which one do I take? There's bread of every kind. One looks more fit. Another promises to be light. Another has a bunch of grains on the package. And then there's the soft one we've known since childhood. But after 60, that choice stops being just about taste or habit. It becomes a daily detail that can work in your favor or quietly sabotage you. Because here's the thing, the body changes, and it really changes. What felt fine at 40 can start to feel heavy at 60. Digestion isn't in the same hurry anymore, your gut becomes more demanding, and your blood sugar can rise faster than you imagine. And the worst part is that, many times, you don't connect one thing to the other. You just notice you feel sleepy after breakfast, that hunger comes back too soon, that there's an annoying bloating, or that your energy feels short, like it shuts off in the middle of the morning. And then comes the question few people ask. Could the bread I eat every day be helping me, or feeding this up and down cycle? There are large studies following older adults for many years showing something very clear. When the base of the bread is better, with real grain, real fermentation, more fiber, and less fake flour, the body responds differently. You feel fuller, your gut is grateful, and that blood sugar spike tends to be much smaller. Now, when the bread is very refined, very sweet, or made basically of fast starch, it goes down easily and charges the price later. Hunger, fatigue, the urge to snack, and over time, more inflammation and more wear and tear. In this video, I'm going to show you 4 breads worth including in your daily routine after 60, and 4 that, if you can, are better left for rare occasions. And I'll tell you right now, the number 1 bread on the good list is usually right there, within everyone's reach, and many people walk right past it without noticing. Before we start, write in the comments where you're watching from, your age, and which bread you buy most often today. I read everything because it really helps me understand each person's reality. And if you like this kind of simple, direct content, go ahead and like the video and subscribe. Now let's begin with the 4 breads that can be on your team after 60. Sprouted grain, real sourdough, whole rye, and 100% whole wheat bread with seeds. These 4 are not miraculous, but they have one thing in common. They work with your body, not against it. After 60, that makes a huge difference, because your margin of tolerance for sugar spikes, heavy digestion, and hidden inflammation gets smaller. So the idea here is simple. Choose breads that release energy slowly, feed your gut, and bring real nutrients instead of just filling you up. Let's go to the first one on the list. The 4th best bread to include more often is sprouted grain bread. Think of it as grains that were awakened before becoming bread. Instead of grinding the dry grain and that's it goes through a sprouting process. And why does that matter for someone over 60? Because when the grain starts to sprout, part of what is harder to digest begins to be transformed. It's as if the food comes more pre-prepared for your digestive system, which doesn't have the same strength it once did. In practice, many people notice less heaviness, less gas, and less discomfort after eating it. And there's another important point. Some components in grains, when they don't go through this process, can interfere with mineral absorption. With sprouting, that tends to decrease, and your body makes better use of what's there. This isn't pretty talk. It's the kind of detail that makes a difference in energy, fatigue, and even that feeling of, why am I always low, with no obvious reason? But there's a buying detail. This bread is often not on the regular shelf because it usually has fewer preservatives. It's common to find it in the refrigerated or frozen section. The texture is also different, denser, fuller, with visible grains. If you're used to very soft bread, it may seem strange at first. The trick is to start small, one slice a day, preferably toasted. And here's a rule that works very well after 60. Bread alone usually causes problems. Bread with company usually brings peace. In other words, add protein and healthy fat. It can be peanut butter, fresh cheese, egg, yogurt on the side, avocado. That helps slow digestion and keep blood sugar more stable. The third best is real sourdough, naturally fermented bread. Not bread with a sourdough flavor. The one made with starter, flour, water, and thyme. Thyme is the ingredient that changes everything. Slow fermentation does work that your body appreciates. It transforms part of the flour's components, and that can make it easier to tolerate for many people, especially those who feel bloating or discomfort with regular breads. Another important point is how it behaves with blood sugar. Not everyone feels it, but it's very common. With very refined bread, there's a quick spike and then a drop, and suddenly you're hungry again, or craving something else. Because of fermentation, sourdough tends to produce a more moderate response. For those dealing with prediabetes, insulin resistance, or simply energy that crashes mid-morning, this can be a simple step with real impact. How do you know it's real sourdough? Look at the ingredients. If commercial yeast appears as the main base and there's a long list of additives, be cautious. The real one usually has few ingredients and a slightly sour, pleasant smell. The crust is firmer, the inside is more elastic with irregular bubbles. And yes, sometimes it's more expensive, but it's also more filling, which leads many people to end up eating a smaller amount. In daily life, it works very well with simple things. Toast with olive oil and tomato, or with avocado, or with a little cheese and a protein. It also pairs well with soup, especially at dinner, when you want something comforting without overdoing the sugar. And if you like to cook, sourdough is an interesting project, but it's not mandatory. What matters is choosing the right bread, not becoming a baker. The second best is whole rye bread. This is one of those breads many people only know from different sandwiches, but it should be more common at home, especially after 60. Rye has a very particular fiber, more gel-like in the intestine, which helps on two fronts: satiety and cholesterol control. In other words, you eat, you stay satisfied longer, and your body tends to handle fats in the blood better. And there's a detail worth gold. Rye, when it's truly whole, is usually digested more slowly. That means less of a quick spike, less of a quick drop. For many people, this is the difference between getting through the morning calmly or spending the morning opening the cabinet. In addition, for those who suffer from constipation, which is very common with age, this type of bread can help keep the intestine more regular, because it brings real fiber, not fake fiber. But watch out for the trap. There is rye bread, that in practice is refined wheat with a little rye and coloring to make it look dark. Don't go by color alone. Go by the ingredient list. Ideally, the first ingredient should be whole rye flour or whole rye grain. If the first is refined wheat flour, you're buying appearance, not benefit. In flavor, rye is stronger, a bit more earthy. It pairs very well with savory fillings: tuna, shredded chicken, eggs, salmon, aged cheese in small amounts, legume spreads. And here the balance rule comes back. When you combine bread with protein and some healthy fat, your body tends to respond better. Now, number 1, 100% whole wheat bread with seeds. And when I say 100% whole, I really mean 100%, not wheat bread, with nice talk on the front. This is the bread that, for many people, changes the game because it brings together two things that are needed after 60: fiber and nutrient density. Fiber helps keep the intestine working, helps moderate blood sugar, and provides satiety. Seeds come in with healthy fats, minerals, and a kind of nutritional weight that nourishes without overdoing empty calories. There's also a practical benefit that almost no one mentions. This bread forces you to chew more. It sounds small, but chewing well improves digestion and gives your body time to realize it's satisfied. With very soft breads, a person eats too fast and only realizes they overdid it when it's too late. With a whole grain bread with seeds, the pace changes, and that helps. How do you buy it without falling for tricks? First, read the label. Multigrain does not mean whole grain. Brown bread does not mean whole grain. Look for 100% whole and check the first ingredient. It should be whole flour, not enriched, refined flour. Then look at the fiber per serving. The higher, the better, within reason. And also pay attention to added sugar. Many healthy breads hide sugar to improve flavor and texture. You don't need paranoia, just attention. In daily use, 2 slices can fit well, but it doesn't have to be that way every time. The point is consistency. Use it at breakfast with egg, with fresh cheese, with peanut butter, with avocado. Use it as a snack with a protein, or at a light dinner alongside a soup. And if you want variety, there are versions with other whole grains that also work, as long as the base is truly whole. If I had to summarize this part in one sentence, it would be, after 60, choose breads that look like real food and that leave you feeling good 2 hours after eating, not breads that are only comforting on the first bite. And now that you have the 4 that are worth it, let's flip the board and talk about the 4 breads that seem innocent but cause the most trouble at this stage of life. Now let's move to the part many people avoid hearing, because it touches old habits and that trusted bread that's always at home. But think of it this way. This isn't about living in fear of bread. It's about stopping being misled by breads that seem harmless and that, after 60, usually come with a higher cost. At this stage of life, the problem is rarely one slice on a special day. The problem is the daily repetition of choices that cause blood sugar spikes, trigger early hunger, disrupt the gut, and increase underlying inflammation. And here's a simple way to recognize a bread that works against you. You eat it, and instead of feeling stable, you feel sleepy, crave sweets, get hungry too quickly, or your stomach starts complaining. The body gives signals. The question is starting to connect the dots. Let's go to the 4 worst, starting with number 4. The 4th bread to avoid more firmly is white bread. It's the most common and, for that very reason, the most deceptive. White bread is made with highly refined flour, the kind that has been stripped of the parts of the grain that bring fiber and natural nutrients. The result is a food that the body turns into sugar very quickly, and after 60, that very quickly usually turns into a familiar cycle. Energy rises fast, drops fast, and hunger returns sooner than it should. Many people think this is just normal or a lack of willpower, but often it's simply the effect of the food. In addition, because it has little fiber, white bread doesn't help the gut. For those who already struggle with constipation or irregularity, it makes the situation worse. And there's another detail. Because it's soft and easy to eat, many people overdo it without noticing. Before you realize it, you've had several slices, and your body hasn't even had time to send the fullness signal. If you like the comfort of white bread, the solution doesn't have to be radical. The most realistic strategy is to treat it as an exception, not a daily base. And when you do eat it, Cushion the impact. Add protein and fiber. Instead of white bread with jam, think of bread with eggs, tuna, chicken, fresh cheese, legume spreads, and a salad or vegetables on the side. This doesn't turn white bread into healthy food, but it reduces the hit to your blood sugar and helps control hunger. The third worst group is sweet breads and pastries. Donuts, breads with sweet fillings, very sugary croissants, cake-like breads that look like innocent breakfasts. The problem here isn't just the sugar, it's the full package. Refined flour, sugar, and often low-quality fats. It's the perfect trio to spike glucose, increase hunger and inflammation, and leave the body on a roller coaster. After 60, this type of food usually has a very noticeable effect. First comes a quick, pleasant feeling, almost like relief. Then comes the crash, and with the crash comes irritability, fatigue, and the urge to repeat it. That's how many habits get established. Over weeks, this can interfere with weight control, sleep quality, and even the willingness to walk or do simple things. Here, the rule is simple and honest. You don't have to pretend you'll never eat it again. Just don't make it routine. Leave it for specific occasions. And if the craving for sweets shows up often in the morning, try changing the pattern. Instead of starting the day with sugar and refined flour, start with something that holds you longer. It can be yogurt with fruit and nuts, eggs with a slice of whole grain bread, oatmeal, or even a light soup on cold days. It may sound strange to some people, but the body appreciates it because energy stays more steady. And if you really enjoy something sweet, there are better ways. Homemade versions where the sweetness comes more from ripe fruit, cinnamon, a touch of honey, and with part of the flour being whole grain. It's not about becoming a chef. It's about having an alternative when the craving hits. The second worst is industrial potato bread. The name is misleading. Many people think, potato is real food, so it must be lighter. The problem is how it's made. In many supermarket versions, potato bread is basically refined flour with starches, from the potato itself or others, sugar to help with color and flavor, and fat to make it very soft. The result is a bread that feels fluffy and gentle, but behaves like a fast-carb bomb in the body. After 60, that can mean energy that drops quickly, hunger returning sooner, and in some people, a feeling of bloating or heaviness. And there's another detail. Because it's so soft, a person eats quickly and eats more. When it's consumed several times a week, it enters that spike and crash cycle that doesn't help anyone trying to control glucose, abdominal fat, or simply maintain energy. How do you avoid it? First, read the label and be cautious of bread that is very soft and claims to be special, but has little fiber. Second, if texture is what keeps you hooked, look for whole grain alternatives with some softness, or use sourdough and whole grain with seeds toasted, which become very pleasant. And if potato is important to you, use it in its real form, boiled, baked, in meals with vegetables and protein. Potato on the plate is different from potato turned into starch inside industrial bread. Now number 1, which is the most confusing for many people. White, gluten-free bread made mainly from starches. This is one of the biggest marketing tricks of recent years, because gluten-free automatically sounds lighter, healthier, like a better choice. But gluten-free does not mean better for everyone. For those who have a medical indication to avoid gluten, it makes sense to look for alternatives. But even in those cases, not every alternative is good. Many common gluten-free breads are made from refined rice flour, tapioca starch, potato starch, and other starches. And refined starch, for the body, is very similar to fast sugar. In other words, quick digestion, a glucose spike, an energy crash, and hunger afterward. In addition, many have few natural nutrients and little fiber, so the gut doesn't gain much from it either. Some people say, "But I eat gluten-free and I feel better." That can happen, yes, especially if the person was eating a lot of regular white bread and switched to something that, by chance, has fewer additives or smaller portions. But the safe rule is this: look at the base. If the base is only starch and refined flour, you're likely still in the same problem, just with a different name. If you need to avoid gluten, prioritize gluten-free breads made with more complete ingredients, such as quinoa, buckwheat, whole corn, millet, certified gluten-free oats, and seeds. And always look at the fiber per serving. A gluten-free bread with no fiber at all is, in practice, a fast bread in disguise. If you do not have a medical need to avoid gluten, don't assume that gluten-free is automatically superior. Often, for someone over 60, a good whole grain bread or real sourdough can be a much more balanced choice than a gluten-free bread full of starch. And here is the main point of this worst list. They all have something in common. They are breads that go down easy and cost you later. They move very quickly in the body, are low in fiber, and are often full of industrial shortcuts. And after 60, the body charges faster, in blood sugar, in hunger, in the gut, in energy, and over time, in heart health and inflammation. If you want a practical step, without drama, choose one simple swap for this week. For example, if your everyday bread is white, switch to real sourdough or whole grain with seeds. If your breakfast is sweet bread, switch to a better bread with protein, or to an option that keeps you full longer. Small swaps, repeated, are what change the game at this age. And now that you know what to look for and what to avoid, let's close with a clear summary and a simple way to start without complicating your life. If you made it this far, you already have the essentials in your hands. This is not a nutrition course. It's not about living by counting grams, and much less about turning bread into an enemy. It's just this: after 60, the body becomes less tolerant of choices that seem small, but are repeated every day. And bread is one of those daily details that can pull your health up or down without making noise. So let's close with a very clear summary, to make it easy to remember when you're at the store. On the side of breads worth choosing, you have 4 champions. Sprouted grain bread, which is usually more digestion-friendly and provides a greater sense of stability. Real sourdough, made with natural fermentation and time, which tends to be better tolerated and cause fewer energy ups and downs. Whole rye bread, which is denser, more filling, and usually helps both appetite and intestinal regularity. And number 1, 100% whole grain bread with seeds, which combines fiber with real nutrients and helps you maintain steady energy without that mid-morning crash. On the side of breads, to reduce as much as possible, you also have 4 very common ones. White bread, which is too fast and usually leads to blood sugar spikes and early hunger. Sweetbreads and pastries, which bring the refined flour plus sugar plus low-quality fat combo and leave the body on a roller coaster. Industrial potato bread, soft and innocent on the outside, but very fast on the inside. And the most misleading of all, white gluten-free bread based on starches, which for many people becomes practically sugar-shaped like bread. Now here is the most important part, because this is where people either change or go back to autopilot. Don't try to change everything at once. Choose one swap, just one, and stick to that swap for 7 days. For example, if your usual bread is white, switch to real sourdough or whole grain with seeds. If your breakfast is usually sweet bread, switch to one slice of a better bread with protein. If you love the soft texture and find it hard to let go, start by toasting a better bread. Toasting changes the experience and makes the transition easier. And pay attention to 2 simple signals, because they don't lie. First, how is your energy in the 2 hours after eating? Do you feel stable, or are you yawning and looking for coffee? Second, when does hunger return? If hunger shows up too early, it's almost always a sign of fast and poorly balanced bread. Another rule that works very well at this age is this: bread should rarely go alone. The difference between "this didn't sit well" and "this felt fine" is often in what comes with it. Bread with eggs, fish, chicken, fresh cheese, yogurt, legumes, nuts, olive oil, avocado tends to be much easier on the body than bread with jam or bread alone. Not by magic, but because it slows digestion and helps keep blood sugar more stable. And when you're choosing at the supermarket, don't be carried away by nice words on the front of the package. Multigrain can mean almost anything. Brown can be coloring. Fitness can be marketing. What matters is the ingredient list and the fiber. Ideally, you want to see whole flour as the base, you want a short list, and you want to avoid sugar near the top of the list. It's not about being paranoid. It's just about not being misled. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these breads shows up most in your home today? And which swap feels easiest to start this week? Replacing white bread, reducing sweet breads, dropping potato bread, or reviewing the gluten-free that is just starch? Write in the comments what you eat and what you want to test, because many people learn from other people's choices. If this video helped you, leave a like and subscribe, because here the idea is always the same. Simple, practical things that are easy to apply without extremes. And in the next content, we can talk about easy breakfast and snack combinations that hold hunger and keep energy stable, especially after 60. Thank you for staying until the end. Take care of those small choices, because added together, they build your next years.